Greetings and good evening, Stoveminders, young and old. It is December the 20th of 2019, and I'm happy to report that the stove is still hot. It's on high, the water's boiling, it's good stuff, lots of transactions are going down, and with the weather the way it is, and the year almost over, and the longest night of the year almost upon us, that's as great news as there can be. And the winter meetings ended, and the week after has been just as fruitful, maybe not in terms of quality of signings, because obviously the biggest names that were available are off the board, but some really cool stuff happened. I want to give a quick shout out to the dog pilers, to anybody who wants to talk baseball when other people are talking football at this time of year. And a solemn shout out to anybody who is a fan of both the Mets and the Jets. That is a rough existence. I wish you the best, I guess. Diving right into it, some big arms on the move. One of those is Madison Bumgarner going to Arizona. They're the Diamondbacks on a 5-year, $85 million contract. Arizona, I love it. This has been a retooling of sorts under general manager and executive vice president Mike Hazen. Going back to last year's hot stove when they traded away franchise face Paul Goldschmidt, and then during the season when they traded Zach Greinke, and it all kind of looked like they were heading for a rebuild, but no, they've kept some of their key pieces around. They've added some guys, in fact, even before Bumgarner. And in 2019, they managed to finish second in the division and won 85 games. So clearly there's something to this team, and Madison Bumgarner is a great addition to it. Now, 2019 was actually one of, if not the worst season in Bumgarner's career. But what does that look like for a future Hall of Famer? Well, it meant he had an ERA and a FIP around 390. He had quality outings in only 59% of his starts, and his WHIP was 1.127. So altogether, not too bad. And hey, he had 2 injury-shortened campaigns before this, and in 2019 he went out and he threw 207 plus innings. That is a show of confidence for a guy who's now in his 30s and who's now signed until his age 35 season. His strikeout numbers have recovered since those injury-filled 2017 and 18 seasons. Extra base hits and home runs are a bit of a concern, I guess you could say. Over his last 3 years, about 40% of his hits allowed have been for extra bases. And he's definitely pitched better at home in San Francisco than away, but his away number is still decent. And as a matter of fact, at Chase Field, in 19 starts, 118 career innings, Bumgarner's managed a 3.13 ERA, 8.2 strikeouts per 9. Decent numbers, huh? And I don't even think I have to go into this guy's resume. I've already mentioned he's a future Hall of Famer, and that's not an exaggeration. I believe the guy's been phenomenal this past decade. He's kind of put his injuries behind him. Maybe he's lost some of that top greatness to his stuff, but still a viable guy to anchor your rotation for the Diamondbacks, and that means they got Bumgarner ahead of Robbie Ray, Zach Gallen, who's coming off a good rookie season, Luke Weaver, another intriguing young arm, and then they'll have a little bit of competition for the number 5 job, I think, between Mike Leake and Merrill Kelly. But overall, a good-looking rotation for the Diamondbacks. Robbie Ray might leave. He's been tossed around in trade rumors the last few seasons, but even if he's gone, still decent. As you might imagine, there was a lot of competition for Bumgarner's service, and believe it or not, the Diamondbacks were his number 1 choice. Why? His horses. Yeah, he's got a ranch down there. And hey, with this move, he can spend time in Arizona year-round, play in the summer, stick around for the fall league. Gotta love those dry Arizona winters, when spring training comes around, he's already there. He doesn't have to fly out. He's already in Arizona. It's wonderful. And I'm just like, how Bumgarner is this to go to a place like Arizona where he can have his beard going and looking all rough? I like this move, not just for the aesthetic reasons, but because this is the kind of deal that the Diamondbacks needed to make, with Greinke being lost and with Ray constantly being bandied about in trade rumors. It's a huge statement as to the fact that this is a team that is still trying to compete. And it's a blow to some of the other teams in the division, because the Dodgers have been interested in bringing in a pitcher, and they haven't succeeded in doing that so far. The Padres are up and coming, but they really need some starting pitching. And the San Francisco Giants, I don't think anybody doubted that they would be near the bottom of the division in 2020. However, they were trying to bring back Bumgarner. They offered him a 4-year deal worth $70 million. But MadBum took the big money, he took the long-term deal, and he took the horses to go to Arizona. Gotta love it. The Twins were after him as well. That would have been a cool move, but again, they didn't offer him a 5-year contract, according to reports. Some other big moves going down in the Southwest. Over in Texas, in fact, the stove was so hot, their new ballpark caught on fire. Yeah, there was a fire at Globe Life Field. That's not Globe Life Park, which was their previous park, where they've only been like 20-something years, but clearly it's way too hot and humid down in Dallas, so they need a roof, so they built a new one. Well done, Rangers. And yeah, there was a fire, but they also made a heck of an addition. Corey Kluber. Yeah, that Corey Kluber is going to be a Ranger next season. They acquired him for the low price of just outfielder Delino DeShields Jr. and right-handed pitching prospect Emmanuel Clase. Kind of a steal for Kluber. Well, take into account the fact that he was pretty bad last year. And not just, relatively speaking, because Kluber was so dominant for like 5 years before that, but like just straight up bad. He threw only 35 plus innings, had a 5.80 ERA, although with a 4.06 FIP, a WHIP over 1.6. He got injured twice, his forearm and his oblique. He had an uncharacteristically high walk rate and allowed more hits than he usually does. It was just a bad year for Kluber, and with the injuries and the fact that this guy's well into his 30s now, he's kind of his value was as low as it could get. So I was kind of surprised that the Indians were still trying to trade this guy despite that. Well, I guess this is more about shedding payroll. The Rangers will pay the rest of his salary. He's got 1 year remaining on his contract guaranteed. That's for $17.5 million. But he does have a 2021 option. It's worth $18 million, and it automatically vests if he throws 160 innings and doesn't land on the injured list. So some incentive for Kluber to get healthy, and if he gets healthy, and if he gets anything close to how he was pitching between 2014 and 18, that would just be fantastic news for Rangers fans. In that span from 14 to 18, this guy was a 2-time Cy Young winner. 4 times he was in the top 5 in voting. He threw 200-plus innings every single one of those seasons, which I think is one of the reasons why he ended up getting hurt so bad last year. Cumulatively, his ERA was 2.85, his FIP was 2.84. I don't think it's unfair to expect him to repeat those numbers, especially considering he's a 34-year-old, he's a high-velocity pitcher, and he's coming off such a rough year. But, maybe with an off-season to rest, he'll come in all nice and fresh. Either way, Kluber will now anchor a rotation that includes Mike Minor and Lance Lynn, 2 guys who were pretty good in 2019. And new additions Kyle Gibson and Jordan Lyles rounding things out. That's actually looking like a pretty solid rotation down in Arlington. I've kind of clowned in the past, thinking, you got a bunch of mid-rotation veteran guys, But, actually, it was pretty effective for them last year, and now it's going to be theoretically more effective with Kluber. I gotta give the Rangers a little something when it's due. This was a team who won 78 games last year, and who might have the capacity to go over 500 next year. Well, what are they giving up, and what are the Indians getting in return? Delino DeShields Jr., a classic center fielder who's all glove, all speed, and no power. DeShields hit as many home runs as he did triples in 2019. That's 4 each. This guy's a 5-year veteran, and in that career, he's hit .246 with a .326 on base. He's good for 20-plus stolen bases, and he owns plus 13 defensive runs saved across the whole outfield in his career. So, not a great overall player, but a particular skill set that clearly the Indians were looking for. Shields has 2 years in arbitration remaining on his contract, and he was projected to earn just $2.4 million next year. That's very, very affordable. The Indians are clearly getting a little cash conscious now. So, bringing in DeShields, it's a good move, I guess, for their side, but from my side, yeah, it's just kind of looking like it's kind of looking like a rip. Anyway, DeShields, he never really got regular playing time in Texas. And honestly, I don't think he's going to get it in Cleveland either. That's a bit of a dense outfield rotation where you got Tyler Naquin, you got Jordan Luplow, you got Oscar Mercado. I'm sure he'll find some space as he did in Texas, considering just how good his glove is. But everyday center fielder, nah. As for the Rangers outfield, it does open up a little bit of space. But I think DeShields will be missed to a degree because they don't have any outfielders who are above average in any meaningful sense in terms of defensive metrics. Actually, you know what? Joey Gallo's not too bad. And I love Gally. And he has played left field for most of his career, so you could slot Gallo in left. Yeah, DeShields will be missed in center, but if you wanted to, you could throw Danny Santana in there. I know he's kind of a utility player, but he was one of the Rangers' best hitters last year. Center field has been his main position. Yeah, he has really bad numbers in center, but you got to get that guy into the lineup somehow, I guess, and their infield is more full than their outfield. And you could slot Willie Calhoun over in right. So a chance to get a couple of their better bats in the lineup more often. Good news for the Rangers, though again, DeShields' defense will be missed. And the other addition to the Cleveland Indians is Emmanuel Clase, a will-be 22-year-old right-handed Dominican with a very high velocity, talking 100-mile-per-hour cutter. Clase made his major league debut last season. He threw 23 innings, struck out 21 guys, allowed 6 runs, and walked 6. Clase becomes the Cleveland Indians' number 23 prospect. I think it's a good assumption that Clase will be in the Tribe bullpen next season. And yeah, he's an intriguing piece. Again, a reliever, not a starter, and not as proven as Kluber. And matter of fact, the Indians do need some offense. That's a team whose window is effectively closed, and the fact they're shopping Lindor and Clevenger, they're just kind of all, things are crumbling, things are falling apart. But at least they got Delino DeShields Jr. to steal some bases, am I right? Yeah, I'm giving this trade win to the Rangers at the moment, but hey, for all we know, for all the Indians know, maybe they know that Kluber is broken, and he's just not gonna pitch well again. But we'll have to see about that. And the final big pitching move I wanted to highlight, the Anaheim Angels have finally gotten a starter. Julio Teheran on a 1-year, $9 million deal. Yeah, not as spectacular as Garrett Cole, but Teheran, he has some value. The 28-year-old Colombian is a 9-year veteran, and I think most notably for the Angels is he is a durable guy. He's thrown at least 174 innings in each season since and including 2013. Great news for an Angels rotation that was super banged up last year. The bad news is that even though there was a point not too long ago where Teheran was considered a very good pitcher, his last 3 seasons have seen him decline in a sense. In those past 3 seasons, he has a walk rate of about 4 per inning, an ERA at around 4, a FIP in the higher end of that 4-point bracket. In his career, he's somewhere around average or above. 367 ERA, 466 FIP, 1.211 WHIP, 7.8 to 3 strikeouts to walks per 9, a 110 ERA plus. But hey, look at 2019, where basically all his stats were higher than average. He led the National League in beanballs with 14 hit by pitches, and he had a 39% hard hit rate. So yeah, this guy's a 2-time All-Star. Yeah, his career numbers are a bit above average, but there's an argument to be made that the success Teheran had in his early career has tipped those numbers a little bit. There's a reason this guy got bought out by the Braves instead of them picking up his option. And there's a reason the Angels got him for just $9 million a year, which is the kind of salary that usually befits a number 3 or number 4 guy in the rotation. But Teheran will be their number 1 guy. And that's even if he pitches as bad as he did last year. Because the Angels, of the 7 pitchers who made 10 or more starts for them in 2019, 2 had an ERA below 490 and a FIP below 460. One of them, Tyler Skaggs, is a different kind of Angel now. Rest in peace. And the other is Griffin Canning, who the Angels do still have. He is a sophomore. There's a bit of a sophomore slump anxiety, I think, coming from Angels fans. Fair enough. But hey, their rotation now's got Teheran, it's got Canning, it's got Andrew Heaney, who I know is very injury prone, but I was just trying to find guys who start for them who I have any sort of excitement about. The rest of this pitching staff is looking a little grim. They did have an okay bullpen in 2019, but yeah, I think they should add some more starters. They have the capacity to do so. Their projected overall luxury tax payroll still leaves about $20 million in space before the first penalty. So yeah, let's see if the Angels can go out and get some more arms. The most active division in this past week was none other than the NL Central. All 5 teams were busy making moves, including the Chicago Cubs. What were the Cubby Bears up to? Well, let me tell you about now in CUBSCAST. A bunch of minor league deals. Signed some guys to some minor league contracts. The biggest name on that list is Brandon Morrow, a familiar face, coming back. I have a kind of a love-hate relationship with Morrow. Great pitcher when he's healthy, and that's a big when. This guy has struggled to stay healthy for his whole career, really, including and especially as a Cub. He came to this team on a 2-year, $21 million deal, and in those 2 years pitched a grand total of 30 2/3 innings. In fact, he didn't pitch at all in 2019. He's very effective when he's healthy. With the Cubs, he converted 22 of 24 saves. He had a 1.47 ERA, and his FIP was a bit above 3, but still pretty good. So I guess it's fine that he's coming in on a minor league deal that's a lot less financially risky. If he does crack the major league roster, he's only going to get paid $1 million. So yeah, this bullpen's fairly depleted. Morrow was one of the arms we lost, so bringing him back is, I guess, a neutral net gain. Hopefully he's healthy. That's all I can hope for at this stage. Cubs did lock down another reliever, a fellow by the name of Ryan Tepera, right-hander who's going to make $900,000 if he makes the major leagues. He spent his last 5 years, his whole major league career, in a Toronto Blue Jays uniform. His career numbers are decent, they're They're all right. He's got a 3.64 ERA and a 4.41 WHIP, a 1.156 WHIP in those 5 years. However, 2019 was his worst season. He battled an elbow injury, threw only 21 plus innings, and his strikeout numbers were way down. Not an exciting pickup. I'm almost more excited by Jarrell Cotton. Yeah, I really don't like this trend of Epstein and company just signing pitchers with injury histories. Like, are there any available pitchers who just are not coming off having their elbow incinerated? You know, like, it was annoying enough to get in like Drew Smiley and Kendall Graveman, who we signed knowing they were going to miss whole seasons due to Tommy John surgery. I was like, all right, reclamation project. But after a few of those, and none of those really panned out, even though Drew Smiley was a trade chip in the Cole Hamels deal. I don't know. I'm not super excited about this, but if Tepera can regain his form a little bit, he'll be a fair mid-inning relief option, a bullpen depth piece, but not exactly a bottom of the bullpen guy, unless it was a really good bullpen overall. So, these are the kind of moves the Cubs needed to make at some point. I just hope there's more and better moves on the way for the relief corps. Cubs did sign a couple position players too. Two fellows with similar skill sets. Utility man Hernan Perez, who Cubs fans may remember from his many years as a Milwaukee Brewer. And outfielder Ian Miller, who I'd be surprised if you know, unless you're I don't even know what team he played for. He has very little major league experience. He's 27 years old. He is a plus 260 hitter in AAA, though he's had zero success in the majors at this point. The thing about Miller and the thing about Perez is these are guys who can run. These guys are base stealers. They're speedy. It's the kind of skill set that the Cubs have been looking at in recent history. Think of Terrence Gore. Think of their interest in Whit Merrifield. Epstein and Hoyer, they like these guys who can steal bag. But we clearly have none of those guys in our system, apparently. Javier Baez can do it, but Javi he's a reckless base runner, let's just say that. So to have somebody like Perez, who has a track record, who's stolen 34 bases in a season before, is cool. Thing about Hernan, however, he is a career 252 hitter, a career 282 on-base percentage. He's coming off a pretty bad season in Milwaukee. However, he can play any position. And in his career, he has positive defensive runs saved at all positions except pitcher and catcher and center field. And he's played in center field. He just has a negative defensive run save. But it's kind of a cool piece. Yeah, if anything, maybe we can flip him or something. I don't know. Again, these guys are signed to minor league deals. They're going to be competing for a spot out of camp. It's good to have that competition. It's good to have that depth. Who knows? Maybe, they're rekindling a little something. Hernan Perez has had a good year in the past. 2016, when he stole those 34 bases, he hit 270. So he's clearly got something in him. So minor moves, depth moves, I got to talk about them. However, we're still kind of waiting for something a little bigger. And there continue to be whispers of something a little bigger, including the fact that the Cubs and Nicholas Castellanos continue to have mutual interest. Now, I'm big on Castellanos. I love him as a hitter. I like his personality, his swag, and all that shit. But realistically, the Cubs are going to need to clear some payroll if they want to sign him. Todd Ricketts he's got the keys in his hand, and he's not letting anybody have him. I don't know if he's just like super anti-luxury tax, having to pay those penalties, which at the moment the Cubs are slated to pay. I'm not going to get into the numbers of it, but Major League Baseball did release the details of what exact penalties the Cubs and other teams will have to pay. Or if this new TV network is just a financial sinkhole that we don't know about. But for whatever reason, ownership does not want to give out the money that I'd love to see this team spend, and that I know they can spend. I mean, this is one of the wealthiest organizations in baseball. Whether it be the merchandising or the ticket sales or the ratings, and that's pre having your own TV network. Basically did have their own TV network with WGN. But anyway, Castellanos, I think it's fair to expect him to get a contract where the average annual value would be somewhere between 15 and 20 million. And the Cubs do have a few options where they could clear that sort of number off of the salary book. Kris Bryant comes to mind. And apparently the Atlanta Braves have some interest in Kris Bryant. I love to see that. There has been some talk about how the Braves want to bring back Josh Donaldson. But some recent rumors is Donaldson has a couple 4-year offers on the table. And those offers are from the Twins and the Nationals. And hey, listen, Donaldson has taken 1-year deals and 2 straight hot stoves in order to get his value up to get a long-term deal. If the Braves aren't going to give him one, he's not going to take a short-term deal. So, if Donaldson signs elsewhere, be on the lookout for the Braves to possibly go after Bryant. Just saying. They have some great young pitchers. I know we'd love to get them. On the other hand, you could say, oh, well, the Braves are also losing a couple starters in Keuchel and Teheran. They're not going to necessarily trade Mike Soroka or Max Fried in exchange for 2, maybe 1 year of Kris Bryant. That service time manipulation grievance is still ongoing. I thought it was supposed to get solved during the winter meetings. Guess not. Anyway, yeah, Cubs, Castellanos, mutual interest, love to see him back. Meanwhile, the New York Yankees are asking about Kyle Schwarber. This is not necessarily new. If you remember back when the Cubs and Yankees were trading messages around the time the Aroldis Chapman deal went down, the Cubs were trying to get some sort of relief help in that season, 2016. And the Yankees were asking about Schwarber. This was back when Schwarber was actually injured. Remember, he missed most of that season. And Epstein said, no, we're going to keep him. But here we are. They've been talking about shaking things up. And Schwarby, while he was kind of a victim of the hype, like he had such a huge rookie season, and then that injury happened, and everyone's like, oh, this guy's a bust. I'm like, listen, he's been hitting all right since then. He's had some good second half campaigns, like last year where he hit over 280 in the second half. You gotta love his power, his patient approach. He is a below average outfielder, but he's worked hard to become more than a terrible outfielder. He's got a heck of an arm. I could see why the Yankees would maybe like him. I could see why the Cubs want to keep him too. And when you have 2 organizations of that caliber high on Schwarber, you gotta be high on that guy too. Anyway, trading Schwarber wouldn't exactly clear up any payroll since he has 2 years remaining on arbitration and he's projected to make just $8 million in 2020. But if an offer is on the table and if it includes some sort of pitching, and the Yankees have a lot of pitching prospects high up in their top 30, bringing a guy like Davy Garcia, maybe they'd even offer a major league level talent like Loaiziga, maybe even Gleyber Torres just to have some fun. It'd be great to have him back, wouldn't it? I don't know. Yeah, Schwarby's been talked about. I think it would take a lot to move him just because this front office loves Schwarber, but we'll have to see. And just one other rumor I want to talk about in regards to the Cubs is they're one of several teams looking at Steven Souza Jr., the former Diamondbacks outfielder, who has recovered from knee surgery. He was non-tendered by the Diamondbacks because they didn't want to pay him a bunch for a guy who just missed a bunch of time to injury. Souza is again of that high-speed skill set. He does come with a very good glove too. He's got some pop, even though he's a below-average, high strikeout hitter. He is clearly, a capable player. Again, several teams are in on Souza. I'm not sure exactly if the Cubs would be all in on him just because of all these other outfielders the team already has. But if they trade somebody like Almora or Happ or Schwarber, clear up some space in the outfield, and they don't necessarily get Castellanos, I can see them going after Souza. But at the moment, it's such things having too many guys in the room, right? Anyway, that's about it for CUBSCAST. What other NL Central teams were active? Well, the Brewers were very active. They signed almost a handful of new players this past week. Eric Sogard returns to Milwaukee. They also signed Ryan Healy, Justin Smoke, and pitcher Brett Anderson. Starting off with Anderson, that one actually happened at the very end of the winter meetings, or rather the day after the winter meetings. I broke it at the end of the last Stoveminders. He's coming in on a one-year deal worth $5 million with $2 million in incentives. Anderson, the left-hander, 11-year vet. He's been adequate the last couple years. In 2019, as an Oakland Athletic, he made 31 starts, 176 innings pitched, a 3.89 ERA, and a 4.57 FIP, a little divergent. His career marks in those departments are both similar, and they're both around 4. So kind of your average, acceptable back-of-the-rotation arm. And I think what's most important to take away from his most recent campaign was it was Brett Anderson's longest season, his fullest season, since 2015. He's had some injuries towards that time he was on the Cubs, didn't really crack the rotation. But he's kind of reestablished himself, and here he is coming back to Milwaukee. There's a chance he might just become kind of a swingman. He has seen a lot of bullpen action the last few years, partially because of injury, but also because, statistically speaking, he gets worse through the order. Once batters start to see him a couple times, they start to shell him. And considering how unorthodox that Brewers pitching staff is, how much they like to use openers and long relief guys, Brett Anderson fits that mold very well. Or he could fit into the rotation as well. They got Brandon Woodruff up there, Adrian Hauser, Josh Lindblom, Eric Lauer. They could use a number 5 guy, or they could find some complete rando/opener to fill that 5th hole. I wouldn't put it past Craig Counsell at all. Good signing for the Brewers, since this is the kind of player they needed, even though it's not maybe the super exciting, high-end arm the Brewers have lacked in these past several years. Oh, and I forgot to add, they signed Avisail Garcia. That was the biggest addition they made. Outfielder Avisail Garcia, 2 years, $20 million. This guy is a pretty good hitter, underrated in my opinion. In 2019, he was a Tampa Bay Ray, appeared in 125 games, slashed .282, .332, .464, hit 20 home runs, 25 doubles, and 72 RBIs. In his 8-year career, he's a .273 batter with a .751 OPS. He was an All-Star in 2017, had a below-average 2018, came back, had a good season with the Rays. Now he's cashing out. I think his bat is well established. His glove's a little below average. As far as the Brewers fielding, they've already told him he's going to be playing mostly left field, maybe some center field, even though he's been a right fielder for basically his whole career. What that means to the Brewers outfield is, you got Yelich in right, Kane in center, and that means Ryan Braun is going to get pushed from left field down to first base, where he has some experience, and where the Brewers have an opening with Eric Thames gone. Meanwhile, for Tampa Bay, it is a loss, and here you have a Rays team that signs guys and lets them walk and doesn't really replace them. But they got options. They always find a way to fill it up. One more note on this deal is Avisail refused a 3-year deal, which he had on offer from the Brewers and other teams apparently, because of the CBA expiration after the 2021 season. He thinks he can get a bigger contract after the new CBA, which is an interesting take. I don't know if that reveals anything about maybe what the MLBPA has in store for their demands, trying to do something as far as average or minimum salary, because, you have wealth inequality in Major League Baseball. You got guys making $35 million a year, and then these mid to low range guys are often struggling to get Major League guarantees. And if that strike does happen, he'll have a free agency, and maybe he can go to Japan, join Adam Jones over in Osaka. But a good pickup for the Brewers, a team losing some good bats in Moustakas and Thames and Grandal, bringing in a guy who you can hit, like Garcia. I think that's a good move. And matter of fact, they added some more bats. Kind of added too many bats. They brought in Justin Smoke, first baseman, on a 1-year, $5 million deal. Smoke, a switch-hitting 33-year-old, is a pretty well a pure slugger. In 10 seasons, he has a .231 batting average and a .420 slugging percentage. He's found some success as a Blue Jay the last few seasons. In 2019, not necessarily, he batted just .208 in 121 games, though with a .748 OPS, drew walks, hit long balls, had 22 home runs last year, 61 RBIs. He's had 3 straight 20-plus home run seasons. He was an all-star in 2017. He's a below-average fielder, so you can probably see him splitting time with Braun over at first. The thing about Smoke is there's his power and there's his discipline. He rates very well in some of these metrics like swinging in pitches outside of the zone and average amount of balls per at-bat. Sounds like a guy you'd love to have as a pinch hitter. So again, interesting move for the Brewers. And here where things start to get a little muddled. Eric Sogard, who was a Brewer for 2 seasons, 2017 and 18, was great in 17, was bad in 18, ended up splitting 2019 between Toronto and Tampa Bay. In 110 games combined, he slashed .290, .353, .457 with 38 extra base hits. His numbers did take a bit of a downturn when he went to Toronto, but the majority of when he went to Tampa Bay, but the majority of his season was spent in Toronto, where he was hitting very well, where he was hitting .300. So here he comes back to Milwaukee on a 1-year, $4.5 million deal. Fielding-wise, also Sogard is a utility man. He can play second, where he's spent most of his time and has the best defensive ratings. And he can also play third base and outfield, where he debuted last season. It'll be interesting to see where the Brewers can fit him. And I guess before we get to that discussion, I should touch on Ryan Healy, the corner infielder the Brewers brought in on a 1-year deal with terms yet to be disclosed. Healy's been around for 4 years. His first 2 seasons in Oakland were good. His last 2 seasons in Seattle have been bad. 2019, he played 47 games. He batted .237. He had an on-base below .300. He did manage 23 extra base hits. He's not considered a good glove. He's mostly been a third baseman, which is of note for the Brewers that need a replacement for Mike Moustakas. Healy's obviously more of a depth piece than he is a full-time replacement. And listen, you got Healy, you got Sogard, you got Luis Urias, you have Orlando Arcia. Keston Hiura, I'm going to kind of assume he's going to be at second base. And then you have Braun and Smoke splitting time at first. It's a very full infield for the Brewers. But I guess the good news is they've kind of filled up their position player quota for the offseason. And they did so with a bunch of relatively low-cost deals, classic Brewers. So, I guess it's been a very Brewers hot stove for them. They're not a team who's going to spend big. Meanwhile, the Cincinnati Reds signed left-handed pitcher Wade Miley to a 2-year, $15 million contract plus an option. Miley had an excellent 2018 with the Brewers, a career year. Maintained some of that in 2019. Coming over to Houston, he threw 167 plus innings, 3.98 ERA, 4.51 FIP, 1.345 WHIP, an okay strikeout to walk ratio. He's mostly a ground ball pitcher. 49.7% ground ball rate, a 1.16 ERA plus, so ballpark-wise, he was above average. And for a number 4 to number 5 guy, that's kind of what you want. The Reds can now boast a rotation of Luis Castillo, Trevor Bauer, Sonny Gray, Wade Miley, and Anthony DeSclafani. And you know what? Miley's basically a replacement for the departing Tanner Roark, and the Reds got him for less than what Roark got, signing with Toronto. So hey, $7.5 million a year for a solid number 4 starter. The Reds keep making quality moves. They're going to be a team to watch next season. This whole division's going to be really interesting next season. The Reds could still stand to add a shortstop with Jose Iglesias gone. They don't really have a clear-cut shortstop on that team. Maybe some depth for the outfield and maybe some relief too. I don't think they're done yet. And the Cardinals signed left-handed pitcher Kwang-hyun Kim to a 2-year, $8 million deal with $1.5 million in incentives. Lots of Asian stuff going on. This hot stove. A lot of guys coming over from Japan and Korea. And we're not done yet. There's another fellow I'm gonna get to in a second. Some guys going over to Japan. It's interesting. Well, Kwang-hyun Kim is a 12-year veteran of the Korean baseball organization. Spent that whole time with the SK Wyverns. He's been well regarded for years. He almost signed with the Padres in 2014, but they didn't come to a conclusive deal. And you know what? He's improved since then. Well, I should add he's kind of had a weird career. He was very good as a youngster from 2008 when he won the KBO MVP award at 19 years old through to 2010. Then he was kind of alright for several years, and then he missed all of 2017 due to injury. But he rebounded with a good 2018 and an even better 2019. He threw 190-plus innings, the most in 9 seasons, had a 2.98 ERA, 1.24 whip, threw 130 strikeouts to 30 walks, sorted out his long-standing command issues. Looking good. I mean, this is a Cardinals team that picked Seung-hwan Oh out of Korea, and he was very good out of their bullpen for a few years. And now here they have Kwang-hyun Kim, ready to round out their rotation. Jack Flaherty, Miles Michaelis, Dakota Hudson, Adam Wainwright, Kim, or perhaps Carlos Martinez, though he's been very effective in the bullpen. Be interesting to see what Mike Schilt does in that regard. Maybe they can even move Kim to the bullpen or Wainwright, or who knows? We'll have to see. But a good signing for the Cardinals, I must say. And I said all the NL Central teams were active. Yes, the Pirates did something. They assigned catcher Luke Maile to a deal whose terms are not disclosed, but it is a major league level pact. And that makes sense considering they need help behind the plate with Francisco Cervelli gone, and the fact that Elias Diaz was released. Maile is considered a pretty good defensive catcher. His batting, no, not so great. He's a career 198 hitter in 5 seasons. But, I mean, oftentimes you just need a guy who can catch. And Maile is that guy. Career 21-plus defensive runs saved at the position, 33% caught stealing rate over his career. He's rated as an above-average framer as well. All good. The Pirates don't expect themselves to compete, but you might as well have a guy behind the plate who can catch the ball. And Luke Maile, is it Maile or Maile? It's Maile. Luke Maile is that guy. Straight out of Edgewood, Kentucky. Never heard of it. We'll never mention it again, most likely. Well, staying in the Midwest, but going over to the American League, the AL Central was quite active as well. The Chicago White Sox landed an arm that they needed. Left-handed starter Gio Gonzalez. Terms still to be announced. Great. Well, performance-wise, we can say a little something about Gio. Here you have a veteran slotting into a young rotation. He's 34 years old with 12 seasons under his belt. He's been quite a durable, consistent arm. Mostly durable. I'll get to that in a second. In 12 seasons, he has a 3.68 ERA with a 3.65 FIP. His strikeout to walk per 9 ratio is 8.6 to 3.8. He has a 47% career ground ball rate. He does not allow a lot of home runs, and that hasn't changed ever since this change in the ball epidemic. 2019 was kind of a weird one for Gio. He didn't get signed till the end of spring training, so he didn't really have that chance to ramp it all up, and when he did, he ended up getting hurt. He did throw 87-plus innings with the Brewers. His numbers were pretty consistent with his career averages, so even with that kind of awkward, unorthodox start to the season, he did manage to pull it together and pitch well. And this represents a weird cycle in Gonzalez's career. He was drafted by the White Sox originally in 2004. Never played for them because he was traded to Philadelphia as part of the Jim Thome trade. And here he is finally coming around to play with the White Sox. Kind of like Garrett Cole, got drafted by the Yankees, didn't sign, and now he's going to be playing with the Yankees anyway. I wanted to mention a note on that durability. Yeah, he was injured last season, but between 2010 and 2017, he threw 171 innings at least every single season. He'll slot into a rotation that includes Lucas Giolito, coming off a breakthrough campaign. And some young arms in Dylan Cease, Reynaldo Lopez, maybe Michael Kopech. Not quite clear who they're going to have as their number 5 guy. I mentioned Kopech has missed all of last season. Tommy John, he hasn't played in the majors at all. Carlos Rodon's been a disaster. So it'll be interesting to see what they got. But at least with Giolito and Gonzalez, they have a couple guys who you can rely to throw the ball well. I mentioned earlier the Cleveland Indians are, of course, doing something with the Corey Kluber trade. But the Minnesota Twins signed a couple of relief pitchers. One of them a returnee by the name of Sergio Romo, right-hander, coming back on a 1-year, $5 million deal. Romo, guy's a 12-year veteran. He has a career ERA and FIP both around 3, a career whip of 1.016, a 10K per 9 kind of guy. He will be 37 years old, but he's still pitching very well. In 2019, where he split time between the Marlins and the Twins, he threw over 60 innings of 3.43 ERA, 3.68 FIP ball, 1.11 whip, and converted 20 of 23 save opportunities. Matter of fact, his numbers improved after his trade to Minnesota, including, most notably, his walk-to-strikeout ratio, which was a little wonky in Miami. This is a guy who's durable, who's experienced, a good re-addition to the Twins bullpen. They still need starting pitching. And then they can also stand to add someone in the infield, someone who could play first or second. So it'll be interesting to see what else the Twins do. I don't think they're done yet. They also did sign Tyler Clippard to a 1-year, $2.75 million deal. The right-handed Clippard, wow, this guy is now going to play for his 10th team in 13 years. It's quite a journeyman, but an effective journeyman. In 2019, with the Indians, he threw 62 innings, 2.90 ERA, 3.89 FIP, allowed just 38 hits in those 62 innings, the main contributing factor to a whip of 0.855. Clippard is the kind of guy who gets a low exit velocity and a low hard hit rate out of his opposing batters. Usually a high strikeout kind of guy, and very good against left-handed pitching. Again, a good addition to the Twins bullpen, but they could add a starter and a right infielder. And the Kansas City Royals made a move that I wanted to touch on, and that was the incoming Maikel Franco. 1 year, just under $3 million with about $1 million in incentives. Maikel Franco, this guy was once a top prospect. He's had a very inconsistent career as a Philadelphia Philly. Does not have a good glove. Has hit very up and down. He's had some good seasons, had some bad. 2019 was a bad one. In 123 games, Franco batted .234 with an on-base percentage under 300. His OPS plus was just 80. There's a reason he was non-tendered by the Phillies. But the Royals are a team with nothing to lose. They're going to lose more games no matter what. So, hey, why not bring in somebody who might experience some sort of a career renaissance? Give them that opportunity. I like it. What this does mean for the Royals is Hunter Dozier will move from third base probably to right field, and that will push Jorge Soler over the DH, but no problem there, considering Soler is a power hitter through and through. And there's a couple other moves I wanted to touch on from around the league. The Houston Astros, who've been very quiet this offseason, no surprise considering the amount of scandal and subterfuge that has been revealed in regards to their great con, their cheating scandal. But anyway, they have brought back right-handed reliever Joe Smith on a 2-year, $8 million deal. Joe Smith, one of many Smith relievers. We had a Will Smith signed this offseason. I love when these no-name middle relief guys have just the most generic names imaginable. Anyway, Joe Smith, he will be 36 years old. He's a 13-year veteran, and you probably didn't even know he was in the league. 2019, he missed the early part of the season due to an Achilles injury, but when he did come back, he threw 25 innings, 22 strikeouts, 5 walks, a 1.80 ERA, and a FIP just above 3. He's been consistent throughout his career, and he represents continuity for an Astros team that's losing a lot of pitching this offseason. Meanwhile, the Toronto Blue Jays, I told you guys, a lot of Japanese shit going down. Shun Yamaguchi, right-handed pitcher, signed to a 2-year, $6 million contract to join the Blue Jays. Yamaguchi, who is the son of a sumo wrestler, and who also was suspended for a whole season after getting drunk and assaulting a security guard, is a 32-year-old who spent the last 2 years with the Yomiuri Giants. In 2019, he threw 170 innings, struck out a NPB-leading 188 batters, walked just 60 guys, 2.91 ERA and a whip of 1.159. He's a 4-time NPB All-Star. Good pitcher. Where he'll fit into the Blue Jays pitching staff is kind of up in the air, apparently. Yamaguchi has been cited as a likely reliever for the Jays, even though this is a team that needs some starters. Yes, they've went out and got Tanner Roark, but some of their back-end guys are a little suspect. Yamaguchi could slide into a bullpen that's lost a couple guys in the last year. Biagini, Teheran now, Daniel Hudson, who they traded away at the deadline. They have Ken Giles locked down as their closer, and otherwise they actually they had a good bullpen in 2019. But yeah, Yamaguchi could be kind of a restock addition, or he could fit into the rotation. He was mostly a starter in Japan, so it's kind of odd that this is being bandied about, but yeah, interesting ad for a Jays team that's apparently still in on Hyun-Jin-Ryu as well. And to finish off this here program, I just wanted to touch on a few minor league deals handed out to some veterans who you might be wondering, oh, where do they go? Well, the Detroit Tigers got Zach Godley, the guy who likes to run off the mound after he's done pitching. Was good with the Diamondbacks a few years ago. We'll see if he can resuscitate his career in lowly Detroit. San Diego Padres signed right-handed pitcher Chi Wei-Hu out of Taiwan. He was also a good reliever at some point, coming off a very bad 2019 campaign. We'll see if he can get his career back together. The Padres need pitching, so I guess a good addition. And the Miami Marlins signed Matt Kemp. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Kemp, pretty old at this point, was a disaster for the Reds last season. And if I remember correctly, he after he was designated for assignment, he signed a minor league deal, couldn't get it together at that level, and was just out of baseball come October. Kemp was a good hitter not too long ago, so I imagine he could kind of get it together. And you know what? It's a Marlins team that's probably going to need some veterans, some leaders. Maybe he can teach Lewis Brinson a few things. We'll have to see. Well, that about wraps it up for this third week of December. Once again, some of those big moves. Madison Bumgarner's a Diamondback. Corey Kluber's a Ranger. Julio Teheran's an Angel. And a bunch of other shit. Stovies, keep a lookout. Try not to kill yourself this holiday season.